I've been talking to a lot of freedom people going, yeah, but you're saying this, but you're doing that. How is that working out, And essentially that all comes back to that person. Like, who are you? What do you stand for? Where are you living in integrity with yourself? Because that's where your light is.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't have the light without also owning and loving the shadow, because they're both parts of us.
Hey, everybody, it's Tanya here. I'm so excited to share an excerpt from my new podcast called Women Working with Light. It is a series of interviews with women from around the world who are doing what they love in service to themselves and to others. In this excerpt, I speak with Artemis Keyhani, who is a clarity and freedom advocate integrity coach. And she talks about the importance of support and awareness for those who are creating this new earth as leaders, activists, way showers, freedom fighters, and light workers. All right, so I'm really curious about what do you mean by freedom advocate integrity?
Okay, so in the last couple of years, especially, there's been a lot of stuff happening around the world where people are not happy with the way the powers or the governments or the institutions are handling things. But a lot of them are coming from a deep space of hypocrisy. They're expecting these governments and institutions and places to do things that they are not willing to embody and do themselves. And the energy of hypocrisy is incredibly toxic, right? So for the freedom advocate integrity, it's very much about, I totally get that, as in within, as without, as above, as below. And, this is not to say don't be an activist. Be an activist based on your values, but also you need to carry that energetically aligned. So whatever you're projecting out there or you want changed out there, are you taking that inner responsibility? So I have a series of activities I take my clients through. Me, when I see the landscape of emotions, most emotions are like very solid, self-contained, like boulders, like, fear, anger, right?
Yeah.
Shame and guilt are like molasses. They kind of go into every corner and are very, very hard to actually capture and dissolve on their own, because they kind of infect everything else. And hypocrisy is like putting a bucket of water in a sieve. Whatever energy you're putting towards healing something, when it's coming through, your own blind hypocrisy, the energy is so wasted. So, there's you get a lot of freedom fighters who are incredibly bitter and angry, and they're energetically depleted, because whatever they're demanding out there, they're not claiming here.
I'm just curious, do you feel that people have a consciousness about that in themselves? Do you feel that they have an awareness that there is hypocrisy in the way that they're dealing with life, or is it something that they're, blithely unaware of?
From the groups that I've recently been talking to, because I've been speaking to a couple of freedom groups, they're completely surprised by the idea. So one of my clients, she has really come into her own power in the last, about 2 years ago, when we started having sessions. And she was very angry about a lot of stuff that was happening in the government. And then when I did the hypocrisy exercise with her, she realized she's playing a lot of that out in her family.
Oh, interesting.
So part of it, but she was passionately committed to stepping into her power.
Right.
So, we talked about, fine, you could do the activism work, do whatever you need to do to feel like you have a say in cleaning up this government. But what are you doing at home? What's happening with your kids? Where is the integrity in that? And how, you can't be this split person. That integrity is a lovely word, but it's a damn powerful energy. So when you're out of integrity, you're, it's literally at war with yourself. Oh, I want this here, but I'm doing the exact opposite here. but both of those are coming from you. So
Right.
who are you actually? Who are you showing up with? What energy are you holding?
And
You
it
know,
must
so
be quite a siphon in the energy flow, because I'm very visual, so I'm seeing it as you talk about it. I see it in my mind's eye, like a huge stream of energy, and especially for people that identify as way showers that are out there, making these changes, proposing new ideas. So to have this funnel of intent and energy that's just flowing, and then if that is not consistent in their home life or their emotional life or wherever the duality sits, it must be like a siphon that just whoosh, takes it right down.
yeah, beautiful
What,
imagery.
what a great concept this is. This is why I wanted to ask you about it, because I've never heard of this before. So do you consider yourself a way shower?
Yes, and I'm constantly checking in on my energy.
It's a tricky it's a tricky one.
Yeah, well, look, earlier you mentioned about, you still catch yourself, with a trigger or something, but that's it. That's life.
Yeah.
I catch myself in triggers all the time. What I used to literally lose days to, because there was so much shame and blame and anger towards myself. Like, oh my God, I totally lost it at that person, and blah, blah, and I would spiral into this heap of, crap. Now I go, you know, I like, even sometimes as I'm about to open my mouth to say something, I go, no, that's not coming from my clear energy. I'm just going to take a deep breath.
Oh, girl, you got the awareness button. You get to wear that big I am aware button. I strive to do that.
Yes. But even some of the bigger topics, if I, I do find that the closer the relationship is to you, the deeper level of self-compassion and honesty it takes to actually see my part in things. So, it's easier for me to see the stuff out there that I've been out of alignment and to then rectify it. If I'm mad at somebody under this roof, sometimes it takes me a day to back down and go, what was that about? So if I, go into my self-compassion and go, okay, what was happening for me? What was that pressing for me? What do I need to do to make myself feel safe so I can then come back into integrity and then problem solve it? Because you can't logically problem solve something when energetically you feel attacked. We know that the mind shuts down when the body is in trauma. So I need to go into my center and go, okay, I recognized yesterday that situation was out of alignment for me. What was going on? Okay, I was feeling unheard. All right, what do I need to do right now to make myself feel safe? And then after I've done that, then I go, okay, so in that moment when I wasn't feeling heard, what did I need to say? What am I expecting of this person? What can I do about it now? So, the process does go from me losing days of in like, and I call it the abyss of my depression, because that's literally like every time I was there, it was so black that I never thought I'd see the light of day again. To now I can sit in my self-compassion, even when I have one of those exchanges, and go, okay, how are we gonna move forward from this? How can I bring myself back into integrity? So do I consider myself a way shower? I suppose in different areas. For myself, yes. Whether other people would call me that, I don't know.
Just listening to you describe it, it's like, wow, that's incredibly valuable. That's so valuable for so many people, I think, because we do live in this incredible dualistic world where we get this opportunity to play in the energies and dance around and decide we want to have one experience or another experience, as we're all sort of learning to love ourselves and let go of all the judgment, which is, that's the big challenge. But also to find these new opportunities to look at ourselves and to learn something new. And the reason I was asking you if you consider yourself a way shower is because I could see that idea and concept of having that balance, having that awareness. Am I being truly in my authentic self and presenting who I am? Or is there some level of hypocrisy? Is there something that's holding me back? Perhaps many people do this without intention. I would say probably most, but that's just guessing because I don't know much about the work. But to say, all right, if I'm out there, so what's coming to my mind is in British Columbia, there is a place that has one of the last old growth ancient forests called Fairy Creek. And there's a lot of people who have been out there for a very, very long time. So this is like, old school chained to the trees, because they're basically saying, we're not having it anymore. You can't take these trees down that are 1,000 years old. There's none left, Yeah. And then on the flip side, there's some guys out there, some characters that are, kind of ravers, and they're chained to the tree and they're, on their phone going, check me out. So it's interesting, because is that helping the situation, or is it hindering the situation? Is it being authentic and actually bringing awareness and helping to make change? Or is it, feeding your Instagram monster or whatever, your social media monster? So I think very interesting work that you are doing. My brain's all titillated with all these new ideas now.
Can I tell you that I coined that phrase? I'm like, because I started out as a business coach, and then I realized all the stuff people were coming to me was like really whole of life. Because as I said, you take it by whatever handle is sticking out, and sometimes people were more readily to engage with something under the business guise that was still happening in their personal life, but they kind of weren't ready to look at it that way. And I do a lot of parenting always comes in, because how we treat the people under our so-called authority is a huge reflection of who we are. And over the last 2.5 years, I've kind of outed myself in the freedom advocacy world. But then, because I've always got my coaching philosophy on, it's not a hat I put on, it's just how I live life. I've been talking to a lot of freedom people going, yeah, but you're saying this, but you're doing that. How is that working out, And so essentially that all comes back to that person. Like, who are you? What do you stand for? Where are you living in integrity with yourself? Because that's where your light is. Mm-hmm. But we can't have the light without also owning and loving the shadow, because they're both parts of us. And we can't, like, for me, when and your visual, like you said, for me, it's like most of us are like split. We want to be all love and light, but there's this kind of massive dark energy called our shadow that we're ashamed of, and we're not supposed to be angry, and we're not supposed to do all this stuff, right? But we know that anything that you repress, you're actually giving it a lot of energy. It takes a lot to keep something repressed. Yes. Right? Yeah. So when we actually start going, oh, look, this is my shadow. This is my inner vulnerable child crying out to keep me safe. How do I bring her in? How do I make her feel safe? Yes, we think of our inner child as vulnerable and needing to be affirmed that she's safe. But imagine the strength, the courage, the self-love of that 3-year-old who created these stories because that was the only way she could survive in the moment. What if we could, by letting her really sit here instead of some like repressed thing, when she really sits within us, when she becomes us, we then have all of that strength and courage and self-love. Mm-hmm. So, when I work with clients, I work on the inner child, the inner teen, which is a whole other conversation, and then our inner adult. Yeah. And most of us kind of live in those 3 spheres like they're separate. But the work I do is about how do you integrate all of that into one? Because every person you've been, the different roles, the different spaces we've gone through in our life, they've each had their strengths and courage. As the empowered adult who wants to now transform parts of my life so I'm in greater integrity, how much more blessed would I be if I had the creativity, the courage, the self-compassion of that 3-year-old, of that 14-year-old, so that they are a part of me, integrated. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderfully said. I love that. And I think it's such a wonderful journey, as many of us are moving into that in our own ways, in our own explorations, and being able to feel that sensation of not just awareness that there is this diversity within us, but that we can bring it together and support ourselves. And not only support ourselves, learn to love those parts of us. I think that the work that you do is so valuable because it really, I can see it really bringing a sense of ease and comfort of the self that I think so many of us are struggling to find. And that's why I love your title, Clarity Coach, because that's exactly what it is. It's getting that clarity on those things that you might not even know that were a little fuzzy, but that you're finally going, oh, yeah, something to think about.
Yeah, I love it.
I hope you enjoyed this excerpt from my interview with Artemis Keyhani. And if you did, don't forget to check out the podcast, Women Working with Light. You can find this episode and many more to inspire you, lift you up, and perhaps give you information you may not have ever heard of before. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And hey, take a moment, leave a comment. You never know who you might be helping by sharing some information. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.